Bible is just about as long as it is possible for any document to be.
For fuck's sake!
They want to go ahead and they want to take this idea and talk about that as if it's real, as if that's what's real.
This is insane. Look at this vastness.
Hello and welcome to the Lion Go Show, Season 4, August 25th, 2013. And today we have a very chaotic show because nobody must have listened to the video. Okay, I was just gonna say that's gonna be the title of Season 4, bitches, but I don't know. Suggestion. Yeah.
We were hoping to get some audience participation. So far, we don't have an audience. Hopefully, that'll pick up and change a little bit as the show goes on. We will see what we will see. But regardless, this week's show will be talking a little bit about bizarre beliefs, and we hope to get some people calling in later, at least, to discuss some of their stories. And if not, we will go trolling through our list of people on Skype and start harassing them one at a time.
Well, actually, I do know someone who has a crazy-ass belief who we had in the past. Realistic, remember Stephen Christ, who you don't, I think it was you who never wanted to mention him? Yeah, he thinks he's Jesus, and he thinks the sky is made of glass, and... Yeah,
You're still breaking up real bad. Try moving the mic closer to you or something. I don't know what's going on.
fix your connection. What?
I was the ace in the hole. Brass was the ace in the hole because he has crazy stories.
Wait, I got a stupid question. Is everyone hearing, do we hear everyone on Skype? Because I'm using some weird setup, so I'm just curious. Using some weird setup, so I'm just curious. Using some weird setup, so I'm just curious. Using crap, we're fucked up. I gotta just fix something. Don't worry, it'll take me 3 seconds. Give me 5 seconds, it'll work. I just gotta... No, it was because the fact is that I've been using the headphone speakers, not the actual... So I just go to...
Yeah, so XSplit isn't broadcasting the audio at all.
It's broadcasting my audio. Sorry about the, let's see here, headphones. No, I don't want headphones, I want speakers. There we go. And we're back, I think. Is it working now?
We were never on Strife.
No, I mean, you never heard your sound, but now do you hear it?
I'm not listening to the Lion Go Show on the... Why would I be doing that? Listening to the Lion
Zephyros. Okay, now they say it's good. Okay, we're good.
My brain.
God damn it, rats.
Yep, we're good.
He wants to bring someone in. Let him bring someone in.
Okay, fine. Who do you
Yeah,
wanna
hopefully somebody whose mic works.
bring? Yeah.
Yeah, Russ, we don't hear anything you're saying. We hear like little blips here and there.
Who do you wanna
We're
bring
getting
in?
like a random vowel. Oh, I'm getting dizzy. Strife, stop. Ah!
Who do you want to bring in?
Well,
Because I can't see shit on my end.
welcome to chaos.
Hey, it's no better than the Google Hangouts, the one of a million Google Hangouts I've fucking been in.
Oh, no kidding.
Not work.
While we're waiting on this, one of the topics that I was kind of touching on earlier when we were talking about some things that might be worth discussing was what I refer to as church bait. The young girls that go out there and start talking to boys and flirting and all this other stuff just to try to get them go to their church for a Bible study, to try and sucker them into the church, then dump them. Any of y'all ran into that kind of crap?
Nope. No.
I was already in church, so none of the girls wanted anything to do with me.
Were they
Really?
the kind of girls who wanted to have sex before marriage or after?
No, these actually are ones that don't do anything. They just basically tease and make.
I was
like
talking
they,
to
oh,
RJ.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead, Art.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Are they the girls who would have sex before marriage or after?
I didn't know there were. I didn't know there were any that waited until after marriage.
The ones that do it during marriage.
Yeah.
You mean an
They would
affair?
still do it. Yeah. No, I think the church I grew up in no longer has any new mothers that are actually married. If that clears that up.
Wow. Yeah, that says a thing or two.
That means that the church sucks at doing whatever it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I knew
That's
quite
true.
a few people. I knew quite a few people though that they were non-theists basically. They just didn't go to church or whatever. And these young girls would find out about this, and it really got to the point that I was wondering if there were churches essentially, suggesting that these young teenage girls, even into the early 20s, go out there and basically try to lure people into the church. It's kind of creepy.
It's not that the church encourages them. It's probably more the youth.
Dude, it's not any more creepy than any other business tactic where you see some like slutty chick dressed up for some beer commercial to get you to buy their beer, because obviously slutty chicks only.
Well,
drink that
except it's not like the priest went up to the girls saying, "Hey, you know how you could get people to come to the church?" It's not like that.
So what are you
Oh.
saying, Nihilus? It's sluts for Jesus?
That
I
could
know
work.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's what I'm saying. It's marketing.
That could work.
I mean, it kind of is sluts for Jesus, in a manner of speaking. Down here in Texas, there's a new church that opens almost every freaking week, and they'll be having these car washes and this and that. And you'll see
Are you
the
serious? They do car
Yeah.
washes.
you see the teenage guys walking around in like denim jeans and no shirt, and the girls are all sitting there in bikinis. And we're talking like, little teenage girls. Some of these girls are like 16, 17, 18, and they're sitting there just waving the signs and bouncing around and come to our car wash. You come to our church and donate. What?
Yeah.
The hell's this?
Boobs for Jesus.
That's
I mean,
what I'm
it kind
saying.
of is.
It's a marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Massive
it's-
hypocrisy.
It's marketing, like realist said.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
a church in the USA is a business. In
No
Europe,
one cares if it's hypocritical. Dude, hypocrisy has never stopped anybody, especially church people, because they self-identify as hypocrites as if it's like a badge of honor that you identify yourself as a hypocrite, and then they say, oh, there's always one more room for another hypocrite in the church. Like they strive to fucking be that or something.
Oh, this kind of stuff always hits a really weird nerve with me, because my first serious girlfriend, so to speak, years and years ago, she and I started dating it. We'd been going out for a little bit of a while. We finally get together, and the whole time she's, what if we run out of gas? What if we run out of gas? I'm finally like, okay, fine. I pull over the car. I'm like, here, can we pretend we're out of gas now? So, lo and behold, the next day, gives me a call, tells me that a friend of hers committed suicide that night, and even though the friend didn't call her, if she was home, she knows the friend would have. And this was God telling her that we needed to break up.
I'm confused. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was,
A friend of hers committed suicide the night that we went out on a date. So she decided that her friend committed suicide because God was trying to tell her something.
Wow, guy's a
And her-
dick.
And her friend would have called her if she was home, even though she didn't call because she wasn't home. Are you
What the
confused
fuck
yet?
did you just say to me?
Wait. I thought
think-
God doesn't make people commit suicide. I thought if you commit suicide, you go to hell.
Dude,
Oh,
I
yeah.
know that's senseless, but I can't even understand it in a roundabout way. Like I don't
No,
even
he can't.
know about.
So she calls me to like, okay, well, we have to have a discussion. And I'm like, okay. So she explains all this. I'm like, okay, so you're breaking up with me. Is this what you're saying? And she says, well, yes, I have to because, and get the wording of this. You want to talk epic fail with wording? You don't love Jesus the way I love Jesus.
Yeah.
What
Oh.
does that bring to mind? It's like, you love Jesus. How? Ew.
well,
It's creepy.
I just watched my wife seize over in her chair as you said that. So
It's like, what? Please don't let me know what kind of necrophilia you're into. This is over. You're right. I'm out of
Well,
here.
remember, he's alive still, so technically it's not necrophilia. In a sense. It's
Wife
like,
like the-
does have a point.
It's like having sex with a zombie. Would you say that's
no,
necrophilia or
wait,
not?
I think it's more like Ghostbusters when the ghost comes in and
But is a ghost dead or alive?
Strife, what you said made me remove my glasses. That's how fucking stupid what you said was.
I just went back and watched Ghostbusters, so to speak, probably 6 months ago.
Are you
I was about
thinking of
12.
this? Are you thinking of the scene with when they were possessed and they did it?
no,
No.
there's one when a ghost pulls back the covers and all this.
Yeah. And I was probably maybe 12, probably younger last time I saw that, and completely different scene.
I remember the part with the chair and like you just see a hand coming out like right near her crotch. It's like what the hell?
Holy Ghost!
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird how you don't ever pick up on any sexual innuendo when you're a kid at all.
Well, yeah. Like I remember. Ren and Stimpy.
Ah.
That show was
Not get on
fucked
Ren
up.
and Stimpy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
Invader
know
Zim
that-
too.
that Strife got the subtle context of Ren and Stimpy.
Ah.
Yeah.
The subtle context, I don't even know if there was any context of Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was like the worst cartoon I ever watched.
Oh, good grief.
No one feels me on that. I thought cartoons like that and like Rocco's Modern Life, cartoons like that sucked. Those were like, bane of my child.
Rocko's Modern Life was epic.
No, dude.
Yeah, it was.
See, anything with shitty animation sucked to me.
Wow,
That's
it's turned
American
into the after show
cartoons,
already.
man. Like
It's
think of
turned
Ed,
into the
Ed, and
after
Eddie.
show. Ah.
It'll just be one long after show. Yeah, but we don't have. Yeah, but there's nothing to. All right, crazy stories then, man. Who's got crazy stories? You got the crazy girlfriend with the crazy Jesus, crazy stuff. But what else? What else we got?
Oh, I got one. When I was still going to college, I'm now on break. But yeah, when I went to college, and this guy came up to me, this Korean. I think he was Korean or something. And he's like, may I tell you about Jesus? And he gave me a pamphlet. I'm like, what the fuck? And he didn't speak a lick of English. So I was
He's
like,
Korean. He's a Mooney.
what?
He's a
Just not
Mooney.
that crazy of a belief. Was it crazier because he's Korean there? He believes in Jesus? Or you?
Well, yeah, because he didn't know English, in my opinion.
Oh, that's...
The guy's
that's-
a Mooney. It's a Christian cult in Korea.
Well, yeah, there was like this thing in, like, where I live nearby, there was like this thing going on. I don't know what the hell was going on, but yeah.
And Strife admits being uninformed.
Yeah.
Is it
I got-
me or
I
does
got
Stripe
this
talk like
crazy
Boomhauer
people
from
that
King of the
like
Hill?
spectacles out of hunting ghosts and
Who,
stuff.
wait, who do I talk like?
Boomhauer.
Pop culture
King of the
references.
Hill.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
man, I don't know.
Where the fuck did Bratz go?
He died.
Yeah, he's gone.
He's got
Um,
to relog.
Massive brain damage, man. Massive brain damage.
Oh, good grief.
If someone has crazy beliefs, it's him, because he believes in Platonic realms and like either solipsism or the mind of God is the only answer to the absoluteness of reality. But I think, to me, that makes me question, like, how does God exist then?
I had an interesting conversation with Ronnie about similar to that. Like you know the whole thing of fiction and nonfiction. How do you distinguish between the two, in a sense? Like which is imaginary and which is real? Like is the unicorn as real as the idea of it?
Well,
You know?
the thing is, if it's a third-person narrative, there's a pretty good chance that it's fiction. Of course, that includes the Bible, but,
Wait, what do you mean third-person narrative? You mean like if someone else tells the story, you're saying that it's highly likely that it's not based on actual happenings, or that...
Right. So in other words, nihilist, if you're walking down the street and you start hearing Morgan Freeman tell you what's going on, that's fiction.
So my life becomes fiction the second I hear Morgan Freeman's voice in my head.
What about that
Yeah.
movie? What's what's that movie?
No, I think everybody has to hear Morgan Freeman simultaneously.
What is
the
that
narrator
movie?
chirps in.
Anyone saw that movie with the guy from Buddy the Elf? The guy who's Buddy the Elf. He was like a storybook character.
Stranger Than Fiction, Strife. That's the movie reference you're trying to talk about.
Yeah.
No, actually, I was referring to stuff like the Garden of Gethsemane, that there was nobody there that could have actually told the story, so it's kind of this third-person thing. because there's no witnesses to the event. That along with, for example, the time when he's in the desert being tempted by the devil, there's no one there to bear witness to it. So this is just kind of fabricated
Maybe
out of whole
Paul
cloth.
did it. Maybe Paul wrote it.
Paul wasn't with them.
Wait,
Nobody.
Maybe he was a creepy stalker, and Jesus just didn't know he was there.
No, I
What
meant
if
as in
God grew up
like
in
God
Garden of
told him, just like how
Gethsemane?
Moses was told.
Hey, heathen?
Yeah.
Maybe it was the gardener.
Was it Chauncey Gardner?
No, the gardener of Garden of Gethsemane.
The gardener of
Yeah,
Gethsemane.
they're always
yeah.
hanging around. No one ever notices them, you know.
Okay.
Or the bum on the street. The guy sleeping on the bench. I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna go, guys. Ja хочу с тобой гулять. Okay, never mind. I'm not going.
Well, a lot of what's in the Bible, this is actually somewhat in response to somebody that just commented in the chat. A lot of what's in the Bible is considered to be more poetic than anything else. And you can take something like the Garden of Gethsemane, and that could have been added in for the sake of adding something to the tale. But at that point, you're introducing a certain level of fiction or exaggeration, I guess you could almost put it, into the text to try and further along the story, whether you consider it to be something that actually happened or not. You're throwing in these little things that give a little bit of extra insight to the watcher, the person reading rather. But that doesn't mean that it's anything that actually happened. I mean, it's like you take the 4 different gospel accounts pertaining to the resurrection as well as crucifixion of Christ. There's very different accounts there, but everyone's kind of putting their own spin on it and this and that. And there's a lot of creative license in there. So even if you were to take it as being in part real events, there's a lot of embellishing in there. And you'll sit there and you'll cite one segment of the Bible to somebody, and they're like, "Oh yes, but he did this and he did that. No, he said this. No, he did that. No, there wasn't a sponge raised to his nose." It's like, it's a matter of which book you read, man. The accounts are all different, and which parts you want to keep and throw out, that's entirely up to you. But at the same point, if you take the whole thing into a full parallel read of all this, you instead of having the one account that you can prefer of Jesus not saying a word the whole time, or Jesus not saying anything except for the whole Father, Father, why have you forsaken me, or Jesus and being rather talkative up on the cross. I mean, it's really a matter of which one resonates more with you if you're going to take it from a more theological viewpoint. But instead, they've taken these, crushed them into one, and basically said, well, all of these accounts are just one account, and all these things happen simultaneously, even though some of them contradict. And
Yeah, I
that
think it was like
confuses me.
the crucifixion happened the day before Passover, the day of Passover, and the day after Passover.
Yeah, it's all a matter of which gospel you read.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know that much, but I've heard that.
Oh, good grief. So, how do you guys have to deal with door knockers often, or no?
Nope.
Just
No.
Mormons.
Just Mormons?
Those are the only ones I end up with,
Are you in
and they
Utah?
go away pretty easy. No, I'm in Kansas.
Close enough.
Yeah,
Dude.
just a couple states away.
Wait, isn't like Kansas where one of their like bases?
That's Utah.
No. I mean, as in like I've read the story of where Joseph Smith went, and he like went through Missouri, I think it was, in Kansas, and then they
Well,
went to Utah.
That was a
That's
long
fair.
time ago.
I know it was a long time ago, but
Oh yeah. Well, they got started in Missouri, yeah, and
They
What
kept
city?
being driven out of state after state, and it was finally when they settled where they are now, is they drove out the inhabitants there. There was a massive slaughter of all the people that lived there, and then they claimed it as their own. It wasn't until years later when, what's his name, Joseph Smith, was it?
yeah.
Yeah, he was ousted by Brigham Young and some of the others because he was starting to take too many liberties, particularly with the wives of people like Brigham Young.
Mhm.
so wait, you're
and-
telling me people kicked him out of his own organization?
He started the church, and what happened was he started basically screwing other men's wives and making up reasons for why God said this was okay, and the other members weren't standing for it, and granted, the church likes trying to hide this, but at the same point, as far as I'm concerned, they were kind of reclaiming their faith from the founder.
That's funny.
It was kind of self-serving profit, the same kind of crap that always happens with them.
People had enough of him, so like, fuck you.
Yeah, essentially.
Basically, they overthrew a dictator for all intents and purposes.
And as I understand it, they then wound up in the Utah territory, which was huge, went as far south as Texas, and covered most of Colorado. And then as the U.S. started to shrink them, and then they sort of narrowed out the rest of the states, and they wound up mostly in Utah, and that's why they're still there.
I got a stupid question though. Why would they build their thing, like their capital, near Salt Lake City? I mean, near a Salt Lake. I mean.
Well, it's not like they said, okay, this is where we want to be. They were kind of driven to it.
I know, but like God sending you.
Strife, let me answer your question.
Hmm?
Why is Venice, Italy, built in a river delta?
Because it's pretty.
No, it's because the people got driven there. That was as far as they could go.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Wasn't it in a swamp?
Swamp, river, delta, same thing.
Nah.
Either way, the water comes in, floods the crap out of the city. Yeah.
Hey, the Prophet Muhammad's on.
What?
In the call? In the
chat.
I don't see the chat rolling here.
You need to refresh. You got logged out.
Yeah.
The Prophet Muhammad, sure enough. Hi, Muhammad. How are you? Do you have a picture? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
It took me like
another...
10 seconds, but I just got that joke.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually kind of another weird one, the whole thing with the image of Muhammad. This has actually been a running
Does anyone
theme
actually
for a
know what he
little
looks
while.
like? Or is it like Jesus? Nobody
No.
really knows.
The belief pertaining to the Prophet Muhammad, first off, you're not supposed to show any images of the Prophet. And the older, the more classical images would always have a veil over his face. Now, the whole thing is you're not supposed to show his face, because when you're judged, you're supposed to stand there and they'll say, who is this man? And you'll see an image of Muhammad, and those that are the true believers will recognize him. And I think part of the reasoning is that if, you keep making all these different images of what Muhammad looks like, it might confuse the people so they won't recognize him.
But isn't that kind of saying like, oh, how do I know you're Jesus? Maybe you're the devil.
No, because you don't have to do that with Jesus.
You don't?
No.
Nope.
They don't say, here's a picture of Jesus so you know who it is. They only do that with Muhammad.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it doesn't technically say a picture, mind you, but might as well be.
I mean, makes sense. I mean, how do I know that guy's Muhammad?
Well, that's the thing, is according to their scripture, the believers will just see and know. But I'm thinking that maybe part of their rationality is that people might get confused as what he looks like because they're so used to seeing some representation or another. So, but the whole false idols thing that's really big in there, part of the whole shtick with that is Muhammad didn't want to become an idol, a false idol to them, so to speak. So that's part of that, but it's been taken to the point that now it's like, oh, you've showed a picture of Muhammad, blah, 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 blah. Of course, then what happens is you have a bunch of people that sit there and they die, and lo and behold, Muhammad does actually look like that picture from the Welsh cartoonist with the bomb on the hat, and they're like, oh, crap. Okay, maybe it wasn't that funny.
Yeah. So, Johan, you better? That's a no.
Ugh, no, Phil. Bring on Polly and have him talk about his parents.
Prag? I mean, Polly. You want me to bring Polly?
Yeah, get Polly.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see how long it never mind.
Wait, I'm going to invite Atheism TV, since he's lonely, it seems.
Well, we could.
Well, I don't know if oh yeah.
Oh, he says 1 sec. Give him a moment.
Yeah, I know, and I can't see. I'm blind. Let's see.
I do technically have topics. I'm just kind of chilling with it, though.
There.
Dun 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 dun.
Was that a squirrel?
Atheist TV, you're all squarely in.
Yeah, you turned into a squirrel. Did the Scientology guys get you?
No. Relog.
Wow,
Atheist.
yeah.
Sounds like the
Relog.
things from Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
You're fucked up.
I think that's the entertainment for this show. It's like you're on fast forward.
Yeah. Like this is like way too much brain damage for the show.
Hold on
I
a
think
second.
we're gonna,
Atheism. Drop the Skype.
That might be the best part of the show, though.
yeah, he's singing. I think we pissed him off.
Hang up and reconnect on the call. That might fix it.
Yeah. I'll recall you.
Oh, that's great.
This happened once on the Magic Sandwich Show, ironically. You remember?
Oh, that was great. Though.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, better.
You're better.
There you are.
You're not a squirrel
Excellent.
anymore.
Now he sounds like Dave Seville.
Who's Dave? Okay, whatever.
All right. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, good. So my microphone, I always have problems with my microphones. There's nothing I can do. It's like
Yeah.
I try and it's always a different problem too. It's like round robin of different problems. Anyway, what's
What's
up?
better? Nothing much.
Oh.
This is the first episode of season 4.
Yeah, we decided to try to go freeform and get people calling in with their bizarro stories of
We're
things
getting
Christians
people
have
now.
claimed.
It's only been 30 minutes.
Bizarro
Sure.
stories of what? Sorry.
Crazy
Do you have any-
Christians.
Do you have any scary stories of door knockers?
You mean Halloween?
Door knockers, street preachers, whatever. Take your pick.
Yeah.
None that I can think of.
What about Halloween? Those are the worst kind of door knockers.
I'm still trying to figure out why there are so many Christians that go on and on talking about witchcraft. When you pin them down and talk to them, they're like, "Oh, I don't think it's real."
What about the one with Pokemon being evil?
That'd be J-Man.
Let me explain, heathen. You see, Pokemon's evil and encourages witchcraft, and it's of the devil. Because instead of small children spending their allowance on Pokemon, like they are, they should in fact be going to church and putting their allowance money in the plate for Jesus.
But Jesus doesn't need money.
But at the same point, why are they condemning? I get that angle of it, but at the same point, they're running around talking about witchcraft and people doing witchcraft and all this other crap. But then when you pin them down, they say, "Oh, I don't really believe it's real." Well, if you don't believe it's real, why are you making such a fuss over it?
Because Pokemon cards are real.
Yes, Pokemon cards are real, and they are evil. And I'm saying that as an atheist.
And they were designed by the devil in order to distract you from going to church and being with Jesus.
Well, that I don't mind that part. What I mind is they're expensive and they don't serve a purpose, and it's just a waste of money.
So you're telling
Kinda
me
like
the
Twilight
people
novels.
you're telling me the people of Nintendo are evil? No wait. Yeah, Nintendo.
Yes.
So
Yes,
that
they
means
are.
that means by everything associated to Nintendo's evil. Therefore the Wii is evil. Therefore
Yes.
Mario's evil. Therefore
Don't
Yes.
we?
what?
Therefore, don't we?
Yeah, don't we?
Don't we?
Yeah, don't we?
We in French
So-
means yes.
My
No,
wife
that's
just,
we.
see, my wife
No,
just
we
relayed a story to
twice.
me from when she was young. They had a maid. My wife's Brazilian. That's really common for them. And this maid apparently thought that a menstrual cycle was the devil. And so every month the maid, well, the first 2 months, because this maid did not work for them long, she locked herself in her room and would not leave and prayed all day and all night for the devil to leave her.
Wait, so she thought her period was bad?
She thought it was the devil, yes. working
How old
in
was
her
this
body.
maid?
Hun,
How old?
early 20s.
I'm
She
confused.
thought it was demonic possession.
Aren't women
Jesus
supposed to
Christ,
know?
Christ, don't question it. It's called lack of education.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That's what it comes
I mean,
down to. Not
and
being taught what
apparently-
that is.
Yeah. Apparently, she would just lock herself away and pray it away.
Hey, ATV, are you from a religious background originally?
Yes, I was raised Catholic.
Oh.
How'd that go?
I don't know. Catholicism isn't technically that wacky in terms of a lot of its beliefs. There are
Yeah.
some believers that take it too far, but it's in some ways one of the more mild things. I mean, you have the Pope coming out and saying, evolution, no problem.
Well, as all the other kind religions in the world, you have all sorts of people. Majority of them are, of course, really how do you say that, laid back and liberal and stuff, and they don't really follow what the church is telling them to do 100%. For example, a shitload of us are using contraception, and we don't care, although the church tells us not to do that.
Yeah, the Christian Coalition is like this one guy that just sits there claiming to speak, or Catholic Coalition, whatever the heck it is this one guy that sits there claiming to represent all of Catholics, and all the Catholics I know are like, yeah, he's a nut.
Pretty much. But for me, I was raised by a very devout father. My mother was not as much, but and then some years after my father died, I don't know if you guys know my deconversion story.
Nope.
Okay. So some years after my father died, I had decided to write a book about the Bible. And so I decided that I would read the Bible cover to cover. Big mistake. Because after that, I was an atheist.
So did you write a book?
No. But now I'm thinking about writing an atheist book.
The God Delusion Part 2?
Something like that. Don't steal my ideas, but the book may be titled Does Not Compute.
I'm writing it down.
Working title.
Yes, working title, Does Not Compute, and it would be just the story of my deconversion with a lot of humor.
So pretty much you're going to do the same thing that Thinking Atheist did.
You could say that, yeah. Why not?
Everybody has their own stories, and it's all a matter of degrees as to just how nutty things were. Granted, my story was pretty boring.
For me, being in a Jewish family, it seems like everyone else is crazy.
Does it work, guys?
Jew more so.
Yeah.
Oh, hey!
We got.
Is it working, guys?
Yeah, you're not having brain damage anymore.
Excellent. I'm trying to get a hold of Alex here because he's got a really juicy story for you, but I can't seem to. I'm gonna see if I can add him again.
Wait, Alex who?
Alex Newton.
Okay,
I
don't
think
know.
you might have talked to him once before. But, this one will trip you out. It sounds like a horror story.
Speaking of horror stories,
I can't seem to get him on though. I may just tell it to him. I mean, he doesn't mind talking about it, so.
Speaking of horror stories, I suppose I could tell
it's
mine.
It's partially my story too, so because I was kind of involved in it. Go ahead, though.
Speaking of horror stories, I guess I could tell mine. There is kind of a darker side of religion, and I'm the one that I try to kind of play both sides a little bit and try to give a little bit of leeway here and there to people that are more moderate views. And as I was kind of saying when I was talking with ATV a moment ago, is that, with Catholicism and what have you, it's generally a more milder view of religion. But at the same point, because generally when you're Catholic, you're in a very heavily Catholic environment, a lot of Catholics around you and what have you, or at least it certainly was that way when I grew up. So pretty much everybody that I knew had some kind of rudimentary God belief. Now, granted, it's varying degrees of practice, very varying degrees. And most of them, it's more a matter of trying to look better than the other people that you're going to church with and trying to stay awake during the service because, frankly, the Catholic services are so dull.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
But we also, prior to taking things like your First Communion, there's this, it's the equivalent of Bible study called CCD that they have you go to. We had the nickname for it of City Central Dump. This tells you how seriously most of us took it. Yet at the same point, you go in there and they stress how important it is that if you have any questions, just ask. So I did. And I started off by asking why God seemed so vain based upon the Ten Commandments, and that was not received too well. So I went CCD class to CCD class to CCD class because I kept asking questions that were uncomfortable. Well, as I kept getting kicked out of these, I kept being called evil and being accused of being of the devil and all this other stuff. I couldn't believe in the God notion, but at the same point, I couldn't really believe in the devil notion initially either. And I found But the more I tried to convince myself that there was a God, the more I started to believe that I was of the devil.
What? How old were you?
I was, let's see, no, CCD, that put me at what? This technically started back probably, I'd say, around 10-ish or so. Even
Okay.
more so. And by the time that I turned 13, well, technically before I turned 13, I had pretty much been convinced of myself, because I kept being called evil and all this other stuff because I didn't believe what they did, that I started to take on that persona. I started to believe it. Seeing as I
So
could-
you were a Satanist?
Actually, it's worse than that.
Oh wait,
Because-
did you do that whole cult thing?
Strife, let him finish.
Oh, sorry.
I can't tell my story. So, before long, I had basically decided that since I could not accept the God notion, because I couldn't feel this God that they were claiming that I should be feeling and all this, I had gotten convinced that I was of the devil. So I started acting accordingly, and me and this one other kid I knew started actually going into an area in the woods we knew where there was a small stone clearing, and started mutilating small animals, mostly birds. And this ended up growing into a small death cult, which didn't technically last long, thankfully, because I got committed partway through.
Wow.
But we're talking to the point of trying to, me in my case, trying to force myself to believe, ended up with starting a small cult. And it's, looking back at it now and thinking about how screwed up I was by this as a kid, there's all these people out there that will talk about how religion is good for everyone, and I'm pretty well proof to the contrary. Because my inability to have a God notion that was acceptable to me led me down this road. The first week that I got together with me and this kid that I'd been going out into the woods with, he brought 2 of his friends, and I just did what I guess the New Agers would call the equivalent of channeling, that basically talking nonsense up at the top of this earthen mound that we had out there. And the next week it went from 4 kids to 8 kids, and the third week there were actually 16 kids there just listening to every frickin' word I said, no matter how batshit crazy it was. I mean, and I look back at it, and I look at all these shows talking about, profiling and all this kind of stuff, and I think, crap, I would have been like the next fucking Charles Manson if I hadn't gotten the help I needed when I did. And all this because, obviously, since I'm not of God, I must be of the devil, and that whole rationality just drove me to a level of immorality that I don't know that I necessarily would have had otherwise.
Wow.
Whoa. Hello, everybody. What a nice way to join the show to hear such a nice story.
The original topic was supposed to be on crazy stories of like a paranormal variety, and they figured they'd call me in, and then I figured I'd call you in. So,
And not necessarily just paranormal. Just whatever.
whatever.
You
They figured I would
put
be.
it right. Good sir.
Want to tell them anything crazy, Paul?
Sure. I shall be back in a few minutes, and then I will try to tell you something crazy.
Gotcha. Hey, Strife, I don't know, did I ever tell you the weird dream things? I told you about that once.
I think so.
Did I ever do that in the show, though?
Yes.
I did? I thought it was on some other context I did that. Maybe I did that on the show. I was going to bring those up.
Long time ago.
All right, yeah, I think I might have. Oh, yeah, I thought that was during the daytime, though. That was during Amelia Eggers Fearless was on then. I know, and then we were talking about this, so I thought that was during the day sometime, though, not actually during, like, an actual show.
So I just thought about a crazy story. Can I jump in?
Go ahead.
By all means.
Okay. So my brother, my older brother, he got married to a pastor's daughter, and so they are very devout, and they go to church every single time and every single Sunday, and it's like this born again Christian type. And they tried to get me to change religions a few times, and I never did. And of course, they think that they are saved and Catholics are not. In the meantime, I thought that I was saved and they're not. So actually, I thought they were pretty nutty. They invited me a couple of times to a mega church, and it was very interesting. Lots of music, lots less boring than the Catholic church. And once they invited me, my brother's wife's parents, the pastor, invited me to their house. And I thought they wanted to do like a conversion session or something, or I didn't know what to expect. I went there, and what it was about is basically what boils down to a pyramid scheme. They wanted to get me into the pyramid scheme. And I was fortunate enough that a friend of mine told me about this, because otherwise maybe I would have accepted. I don't know. But it was basically like, these little cubes they sell at stores where you can extinguish your cigarette in with a hole. So that gadget, they're selling that for like $8 each. It was really crazy. And they wanted me to buy a box full of them, and that would be basically my ticket in the pyramid. And at that point, I would have to go and get some people to sell those for me, for the company. And I'm like, what? These people are so gullible. So, I mean, like I said, I was expecting to be like, I was expecting them to try to convert me. And maybe that would have passed, maybe that I would have said, okay, let's pray or whatever, but no, it was a pyramid scheme. And of course the guy lost a lot of money with this later. I heard about it, and yeah, poor guy, so gullible. And that's my story.
A pyramid scheme?
Yes. Yeah, a pastor trying to get me into a pyramid scheme. I guess it's kind of understandable. I mean, what's tithing really? It's kind of like a scam. So maybe these people are used to people being really gullible and trusting the pastor. Maybe that is their modus operandi.
Similar to a degree, my mother's cousin used to she got sucked into that whole Amway thing.
Oh, yeah.
She used Wednesday night church services to sell her crap every week, to people who couldn't say no because she was the pastor's daughter. So, she made a decent living that way. But I did think of something else. I know a guy, and he believes in once saved, always saved. And his particular view on it is that he was baptized, he's saved, the Spirit of the Lord is in him, and he can walk down the street and shoot every person he sees in the face and then shoot himself and still go to heaven because he has been saved. And that is the power of that ceremony that he went through.
I got a golden ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think it works like that.
And he is, I have had that conversation. He's one of those really, really, really deluded people that thinks that, even most really deluded Christians look at him and say, that guy's crazy, And
that's how you can tell you're really nuts, is when the other nuts say, nope, that's the nut.
And this, he really thinks he can do whatever he wants throughout the rest of his life. He can never ask for forgiveness. He is saved and he's going to heaven. I said, well, why doesn't everybody do that then if it's so easy? Well, I don't know why they don't. They should go to my dad's church. Oh, yeah, he's a pastor's son. So.
Oh, that explains it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a voodoo ceremony, and then after that, you're kind of like, you got all the magic stuff inside you, and you're good.
Yeah. Golden ticket. That was the perfect example. Yeah.
I got a golden ticket. You know.
Yeah, getting up to heaven, hanging out with Jeffrey Dahmer and all the rest. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Which you could, so long as they never, blasphemed in their life, right?
Well, Dahmer had a conversion just before being put to the chair, so.
But he didn't get put to the chair. He was killed by an inmate. He was in for life. And
Yeah,
then,
that's right. But either way, he did convert.
Yeah.
For the-
I'm
Go
trying
on,
to
wait for
add
a second.
Paul. I'm trying to add Paul, and it's not working.
Why?
I don't know why. Who's hosting it?
Me,
trying to
I'm
add
hosting.
Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you try to add it in, Strife should, in theory, be able to add them once they pop up.
Yeah.
In theory, not always in practice.
Okay, I got
Try
another
again.
story.
I'll try again here. I'm gonna see if I can add Paul in one more time.
Well, you talking about Alex?
Paul Dickow. No, Paul has some good ones too. They're both out of body variety. Actually, I have a couple from people. Like people were sharing things with me, like that they wouldn't talk about in open when they saw some of my videos. And they're like telling, and I just get the stream of their stuff on a quasi regular basis of people telling me this stuff, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And some people actually, I became friends with after the fact, and they told me about this stuff after the fact, and I'm like, this is crazy. Should I tell you Alex's story because I can't seem to get him on, or should I tell you another one from another guy a couple of years back?
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm on this. I guess these private messages from people. Hold on, Paul just PM'd me again here. He says nothing.
Oh, hold on here a second. I have to give a shout out to somebody in the chat here.
All right.
It's Ireland's Patriot. He wrote, I think atheists are closet homosexuals. That is why they refuse to believe in a God as a way of justifying their sins.
Okay.
No, the sin I'm trying to justify by being an atheist is not
Let
that.
me understand how
It's
this
mixing
works.
two fabrics.
In my case, the sin that I'm big on is the whole
I
boiling the goat in its own
purge.
mother's milk.
Oh God. Some guys mentioned Steven.
Yeah, there. And
Yeah,
now we
same
don't
guy.
have to listen to Ireland Patriot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Strafe, do you have Paul?
Is it Alex? I mean,
Paul Dickow. It's Paul Dickow from
yes,
Germany.
I have him. It's just really hard to see on my TV from
All
here.
right. Try and I'm trying to add him, and it
Well, let me
doesn't work.
see.
So I'm suggesting that maybe you can add him.
Tell me if I'm getting close. Yeah, Paul DiCecco, or whatever his name is.
Dickow.
Okay, there.
There we go.
I mean,
There
for
we go.
God's sakes, he lives in Germany.
Yeah.
Just give me one more minute.
So is this the kind of the season premiere of the fourth season?
Well, yes, and it's going for shit.
Yeah,
Like,
we're just kind of
advertising.
goofing.
We're having
around, so,
we're experiencing technical difficulties.
I won't
Yeah,
say
the fact that we couldn't get any guests, we have a whole bunch of stuff lined up for later in the season, but nobody could be on this time around, so
All
we're
right.
just kind of winging it.
So I'm not vouching for this story being true, although the guy seemed to be quite sincere, and I talked to him since. Okay, just trying to give you the framework on this. But he was telling me that he was into some kind of. He wasn't originally doing this, but he was in some kind of like Buddhist meditation stuff, and he was able to trigger out-of-body experiences like on a regular basis, right? And then he told me that one time he was testing this to see if this was actually, his brain tricking him, or if it was actually, because he said he could go places when he was out of body, right? He then tells me that he goes to the other side of town to his friend's house and basically takes over his friend's body and then forces his friend to call himself on the telephone. 2 seconds later, the telephone rings, and he knocks him out of meditation. The telephone rings, he goes to the telephone, and his friend's on the other side, and he's like, the friend's like, this is really, really strange. I don't know why I just picked up the phone and called you for, I have nothing to say here. I just, randomly picked the phone up, and I called you because I felt like strongly compelled to. And then he had no idea why.
Well,
Does
I have
your-
2 words. James.
Well,
Randi.
I'd like to say something for a minute. Johan, does your friend who did this also stare at goats?
No.
Okay.
I'm not saying this is the case. Okay, I'm just saying that this is one of the more interesting stories I had heard from, because people send me this stuff like all the time. It's.
Yeah.
I guess because they, I give them like the digital physics stuff with the world being an emergent construct, and so they're wondering if any of my stuff can explain their stuff, and so they send me all this stuff my way, and it's kind of amusing to. I mean, I don't believe it all, but it's interesting to hear.
I have 2 words for you.
James
Randi.
Yeah, I know.
Challenge,
He has
That's 3 words.
3 words.
I
I'm
got
not
all
entirely
words
convinced
on
by.
that.
Go ahead.
The James Randi challenge is actually pretty hard to win, even if you got these skills. I just want to just give you a quick example. Let's say you are able to read the future and to find find out the events that random number generators are spitting out. And the Randi challenge actually has very, very high standards to beat these things. So let's say you are, for example, trying to guess the lottery numbers, and I think that the chances and that are like 1 against 16 million or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. Let's say you are able to reduce those odds to be like 1 against 16,000, which is still very unlikely, but it's a very, very big improvement, and you're not winning that. You're losing that guess. That does not mean that you don't have the power. That does just mean that it's really hard to do, right? So if you consider, for example, the experiments run by Dean Radin, I know they are controversial and there has been many discussion about that, but so has been about Randi, so I think this is kind of fair. The chances of applying psi effects to in such situations like foreseeing the futures or similar things, they are very small, but they are there and they are statistically significant. But that does not mean that you have to be able to do it every time. It's like expecting Tiger Woods to play a hole-in-one every time. He does not do that. And even a very skilled psychic might not be able to do it all the time.
The thing is, with some of
he's much better than the average person that has been tested, but it's still not enough to beat the odds.
Okay,
in the
Paul, can I just ask one question then?
Sure.
Why has this person not won the lottery yet?
Because 1 against 16,000 is still very, very unlikely.
It's you still reduce it considerably, and it's not that hard to buy 16,000 lottery tickets.
Yeah, sure, but
considering what the payout will be.
Actually, if I may, the lottery's one thing, but there are things that would have a lower probability that if you're claiming you can adjust the probability, that you could say get something to, let's just say 80%. 80% would be substantial enough that they could test it.
They've had experiments at the Rhine Lab and Care Lab.
I just recently read the book, so I might be able to answer that. 80% of what? You mean 80% correct?
Yes.
So,
for example, with predicting what card would be drawn yet, or something that's a little bit more predictable than the lottery numbers.
Okay. I actually have the book right here, so if you really want me to, I can go and look it up. But there has been an experiment that even had 100% prediction rate, and this was not about conscious clairvoyance, but they were testing for unconscious effects. And what they were doing is they were measuring the skin resistance, the resistance of the skin, which goes up under stress. Okay, and they were showing people pictures of various content, and some of these pictures were very calm and peaceful. Some of them were of erotic content, and some of them were of violent and horrifying content. And every time they were showing people pictures of horrifying content, which had not yet been picked by the computer, they were randomly picked every time. They had not yet been picked, but 6 milliseconds before the actual picture had been picked, the skin resistance of the person had risen up, and that happened every time. And there are lots of graphs who illustrate that point.
There's actually an effect called Biermann's response, which has been linked to this, and it's actually a documented. I mean, it's controversial, but it's a documented thing in. I will say that a lot of the time with these ESP type things, I suspect this is the case, is that a lot of the time it's very hard to set up a control for them. Like they had this one case with a psychic parrot, right? And the parrot was...
I'm sorry, a psychic parrot?
Yes.
Yep, an African gray parrot that was reading the experimenter's... We got the hint that they were reading the experimenter's mind, and they had like this whole series of cases where the experimenter was looking at these test cards and then hearing the parrot saying things, right? As Nikisi, I think the name of the parrot was. It was an African gray parrot. And the problem with this is that it seemed very clear that there was something weird going on. I mean, the parrot was either very lucky or had some kind of ESP effect. The problem with the experiment was that there wasn't a proper way to set up a control, because they had the best they could do with a control was look at a list of words and of what the parrot knew, and then say how probable is that it's going to pick any one of these words. But then they had to say how probable is it that the parrot will say this word rather than that word. So maybe if it's saying this phrase more often than not, then if that happens to correspond to one of the cards, and that kind of decreases it. It makes it more slightly more likely. Yeah, psychic. Look it up on YouTube. The psychic parrot. They have a couple demonstrations of it.
You do realize that a lot of these things are fake, right?
No, this was an actual experiment done. It was by Sheldrake. So I mean, he's got some issues, but the issue was that there wasn't a proper way to put a control on it.
Deploy a silicoid blob to distract and harass the enemy.
Well, you can't put a
The
control
silicoid
on
draws
it
enemy
if you
fire
can't
and
quantify
will
it.
attempt to entangle its
You
targets.
could put a level of a control on it, right? You could say, okay, the parrot has this size of vocabulary, and it's this improbable that the parrot will... Basically, it looked as though it was definitely about a 50% probability that the parrot was breaking, by far, but it was hard to actually pin down in such a way that you could... And that's kind of the problem with a lot of these experiments. Now, there are some at the Air Labs.
I think the biggest problem with most of these experiments is that you're butting up against chance because, frankly, this shit's all bullshit.
Well, the chances were it was a much higher chance. I mean, you see a video of the parrot going off like this, and it was a much higher chance.
Yeah,
I have dealt with so many people and people's claims of animals and this and that trying to claim to be psychic, and they've all been shown to be full of shit.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, hold on. I got something to interject here, Heathen.
Yes.
When years ago, I did have a dog that was psychic. It knew every day. It knew exactly when I was coming home.
That doesn't make it psychic.
That was trained, but there is. I'm going to point this
It would hear me at the door.
Well, from what I gathered from what was going on there, because I missed a small part of it, but even if this bird was saying things that weren't in its vocabulary or something to that degree, wouldn't it stand to reason that a psychic human child who had the capability of speaking words but didn't have the vocabulary to do them could do the same thing?
If the child was psychic, I guess.
Yeah. So then we have no basis to reference that on.
Oh, and furthermore, there are certainly people that are more intuitive than others. There are people that tend to have more luck, so to speak, in terms of guessing things and what have you. This is characteristic. But claiming that, people can read minds or the out-of-body experiences and all this, I'm sorry, it's a load of malarkey. I dealt with that shit years ago. I've known plenty of people that'll sit there and say, okay, there's such and such in the next room, and everyone in there like, yeah, when it's not even in the next room.
I have a question concerning what are called veridical near-death experiences, then. This is not out-of-body per se, but it's veridical, and I saw a couple of these. Now, granted, you could say these are anecdotes and all. However, these were, by doctors putting these out. They actually, they work in the emergency room all the time, and they have cases where people die temporarily and then come back, and they ask them these things, and...
Yeah, I've done that twice.
this guy was saying, though, is that the patients were seeing things they couldn't. They were like in the next room, right? And they knew which doctors were working on them during the surgery, even though they weren't awake during the surgery, and they knew what was going on the chart in the next room. And then, in one case, someone identified a tennis shoe, on the top of the hospital, and they were like,
They identified what? I'm sorry.
they found like, I think it was a tennis shoe on top of the hospital, on a hospital roof,
On
and
a
what?
on a window board, some several stories higher.
Yeah, and they went out to go check it out, and sure enough, there's a tennis shoe on the roof. Now, the case I had seen was kind of interesting because this was a cardiac surgeon, a very famous cardiac surgeon, and he was...
Hang on. I'm going to ask you to clarify. So they said that there was a shoe. Where did they say the shoe was?
On the hospital roof.
No.
No, Paul said it was outside on a window board or on a window ledge.
Yep.
So they said it was on a window ledge, but it was on the roof. This sounds like two different locations.
No,
it sounds like the story's just getting a little changed. However,
I can find it for you.
Hold on, Johan. If it is on a window ledge, who's to say that the patient in question didn't see the shoe earlier and just paid no mind to it?
Because the patient was like dying.
No, I mean at some earlier point in time before that happened.
There's also the secondary thing, which is that there are a lot of things that will be noticed on a subconscious level that may or may not be perceived on a conscious level.
Right.
Keep in mind that typically the amount of information that we actually actively process is only about 10 to 20% of the full amount of input that we actually get to the brain.
Right. What about the cases where people are seeing things outside in the next room, though? Because the point was that the doctor, this was not the shoe case. But
most of those are quite vague.
Mm-hmm.
What about
the majority of those are quite vague? It might as well be cold reading.
You didn't say it didn't sound vague when I was listening to it. But the doctor was saying this, and then he goes to his like a convention or something in his one room where he has a bunch of like 13 other cardiac surgeons who are all his colleagues, and he brings this up and asks, does anyone else have this kind of experience with patients? They're like. And then every single one of them said they've seen this kind of thing before.
Well, I can equate this kind of thing. We had something similar near me, 2 weeks ago, with the Miracle Priest over on...
Right, and it turns out it was an actual person.
Yeah. I mean, all these people were completely convinced that this guy appeared out of nowhere and did all these things and then completely disappeared. It's, there are explanations for these things. Just because we don't know them, just because we don't understand why it happened, doesn't make it not true. But at the same time, I think Heathen said it earlier.
We miss things, and
we don't consciously perceive everything we're subconsciously observing.
Right, but some of these cases.
And then there's also a secondary factor which needs to be considered, which is that a lot of the time in hindsight, there's a certain degree of dub in memories, because our memories aren't exact, and when additional details are added later, it's, oh yeah, I remember that. There's a lot of that factor as well.
Doesn't
things
it
that
seem...
you've been told will affect your long-term memory at times and become adapted to them.
That may be a factor, and probably is a factor to some effect, but what I'd like to kind of ask you is, don't you think in some of these cases, especially some of the more out there cases, doesn't it seem kind of like almost like an ad hoc counter explanation, as it were? Well, not all the cases are like that, but that.
Yeah, I've died on the table. I've died on the table twice. I experienced nothing. Now the thing is, for every person you have that claims to have been floating above their body and seen things in the next room, there's a dozen cases of people that had no such experience. So
there's
the question
also
is,
cases of people...
I'm sorry, let me just interject there.
Hold on, Paul, I was actually speaking. There's also cases of people who their experience isn't walking towards the light. No, it's laying in a very dark space with all these hands grabbing at them. It all depends on where your experience is. The people who tend to have the very violent and dark ones tend to be in ER on a gurney.
No, sorry, you're not correct. First of all...
Okay, then disprove me and show me a citation for what you're going to say.
You can read the...
Read the... You broke up there.
Read the...
Shit.
may have dropped
Oh,
again.
crap.
He's good on this. I don't know.
Way to
if-
go, Nihilus. It's all your fault. You scared him off.
It's my fault. I'll take the blame. I like taking blame. The thing.
So while I was gone taking care of real life, what were you guys talking about?
Sex.
I will tell you that Alex's story, it would be very difficult to explain away in terms of subconscious inputs, because it doesn't just deal with things that he couldn't have known. There's
sorry,
other
I
factors
guess-
to it. Oh, he's
Okay.
back.
Yeah. What was the last part that you heard?
Yeah, you there?
You're going to give us the name and author of the book you want us to read.
Yeah, The Irreducible Mind, Bruce Grayson. He's one of the head researchers at the International Association of Near-Death Studies, who have the
Wait, there's actually a thing for this?
Yeah, of course there is.
Dude, there's so much research going on about that, and there's only like a very small percentage of people who have these hellish experiences, and they're mostly the ones who commit suicide, by the way. But most of these hellish experiences, the longer they take, the more positive their outcome is going to be.
Incidentally, the suicide cases would be ER cases, as was referenced by Chicken earlier.
Hmm.
Yeah, that might be true. So that is the first thing, and there was this argument that well, for everybody who has got a near-death experience, there's like 10 people who don't have one. So you might in the same breath say for everybody who's dreaming, there's
Wait, how many
lots of
authors
people
does
who do
this
not
book
remember
have?
that. Oh, there you have a lot of authors, because it's not only experiences but on the study of the mind per se.
Can I talk?
Yeah,
By all means.
So once I drank water and I didn't know what was in it, and somebody had dropped a bottle of some unknown liquid in it, and then I had this weird dream, and I dreamt all sorts of things like pink elephants, and when I woke up, I was at the top of a tree, and I it's just the only explanation possible is that I could fly. That's
Okay, atheism.
That's it.
Atheism TV. Then what you do is you stop hanging around those people.
yes.
They're dropping
but
shit
my-
in your drink to watch you go cuckoo.
It sounds like the Dumbo. That sounds like the plot to the movie Dumbo.
It is exactly the plot from the movie Dumbo. It didn't really happen to me, but my point is that when your brain is doing weird things, you are hallucinating. You're seeing all sorts of things, and then once in a while, this hallucination will have a basis on reality. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but there's a difference
Every
between
time.
hallucination and hallucination, because they are all over the spectrum. They can be from very dissociative with no sense of self, very delirious. Like what kind of hallucination I'm talking. And then there is the other spectrum of hallucinations.
So we're
Yeah,
kind of talking
sorry,
the
I'm
well, kind of. Oh, sorry. I didn't know you were still talking. You cut out for a second. Continue.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's like there's these, I quote them, hallucinations that are crystal clear and who involve like a great sense of peace and clarity. And these are the hallucinations that you commonly find in the death experiences. And
Hey, Paul, I got a question for you. All these examples that you're quoting from here, how
Yeah.
many of them are people who are not under the influence of, say, a sedative or sedation?
Actually, most of them, because the most
Well,
common...
you're always talking about people who are on operating tables
No, I'm not. I'm talking about people who have near-death
or in
experience.
hospitals.
Wait.
No, I'm
Wait.
not.
Hang on.
Okay, all right,
Please, for
Keith.
one moment, both of you. Now you're talking about near-death experiences, and you're not saying you're not talking about people that are in the ER, or on an operating table or what have you. Then where are these people? What circumstances are these people under?
Yeah,
when they're having these
Yeah.
Keith's got a good point. Where are they?
I was going to say that. So, most of the near-death experiences are done on patients who have a cardiac arrest, okay? And before you start talking, let me just relay the procedure to you. They do not necessarily have that cardiac arrest in the hospital. They may have that at home and be rushed to the hospital. And they do not have the near-death experiences when they are on the operating table. Well, we cannot be 100% sure, but because when you have a cardiac arrest, you have got like 30 seconds because before your brain, biologically viewed, goes into total shutdown. There can be no brain activity that is, from our current medical viewpoint, sufficient to create a conscious experience. Yet, these people have a crystal clear consciousness, a crystal clear working, thinking, memorizing consciousness that watches them being operated in the hospital after they have been rushed there. Although they should not have any consciousness at all 30 seconds after the cardiac arrest. And they they were not sedated or under the influence of drugs or whatnot. And the reason why...
Paul, you
yeah?
do realize what is the emergency medical personnel going to do when they come to your house and pick you up off the floor? What are they going to do you in your home and in the ambulance on the way to the hospital?
They will try to resuscitate you, but they are not going.
And what else? And what else will they do?
Oh, you're not going to give me they will shock you argument, all right?
Well, yeah, they do use the defibrillator there.
Hold on.
For what?
Hold on. There's a question. Okay, so you're dissociating some entity from a physical body. That's what you're doing, right? You're saying there is some dissociated entity that's only temporally associated with a physical body, right?
I'm not saying that.
No, that's kind of the conclusion that you're driving at. Okay, you're saying
it's also not 30 seconds.
Hold on, let me okay, if you are saying this, then it sounds like if you're not saying that, then to me it sounds like, okay, there's something going on in medical science that we don't understand. That's what, and okay, so what conclusion does that lead you to? If you're not getting at a conclusion, then what's the point? To tell us facts that we don't know something about medical or certain medical situations? What is the point? If you're not driving at a conclusion, to say that there's some dissociative spiritual entity that's only temporally intertwined with a physical entity, what is the purpose of you telling that? Then what, you're just saying, hey, this is a weird medical fact, right? What's the difference?
The difference is that many of the people in this conversation were making wrong assertions about the near-death experiences that were simply not correct, and I was going to correct them. And when they were, I'm not going to force any conclusions down their throat, because even if that was a subjective proof for me, that does not necessarily mean that it has to be a proof for them. But what the facts do mean is that they have to reevaluate what they know and have to come up with a new conclusion. And they have to do it because it's their lives and they have to find a perspective. If they want to stay atheists after that, sure, why not? It's like my life getting any worse by that. But I just want all the facts, and there are a lot of facts that many people do not know about this very specific topic, and they just wave their hands and go past it without even giving it.
The brain also does some interesting things. Also does some really interesting things when things like blood flow stops, etc.
Yes,
in one of my experiences, one of my quote-unquote near-death experiences, well, I felt like I was essentially sinking into myself. My brain was still very active, and I very much to this day remember the feeling of panic, trying to pull myself out of it. And it was that panic that actually got the enough of adrenaline surge to restart my heart.
Yeah, of course.
But, you know, I'm not going to say that there aren't interesting things that happen in the brain, but a lot of these experiences are merely things that occur within the brain.
Right.
Okay,
and
sure.
Another example is, I don't know if you ever heard about what's commonly called the God helmet. Have you ever heard about that?
Sure, I've heard about that.
So you can basically simulate...
Persinger chamber.
I'm sorry?
The Persinger chamber.
I don't know what that is.
I think that's the God helmet, where you can induce.
Yes, you can induce basically supernatural things into somebody's brain, but they're not real. They're just the brain acting up.
experience.
I'd love to get Alex on here, but I can't seem to. He's on, but he's not on.
First of all, let me say that Michael Persinger, among many other scientists, has proposed that psi effects probably are real. Okay? Because he has, with the help of his so-called God helmet, or he claims to have induced many states of mind that were, in his wordings, could be considered to be paranormal. And I can look that up for you if you want. But more important is the question whether what those people were seeing is, and I'm speculating here, that's not a proven scientific fact, but I just might want to provide you with a different view that might be as true as well. Because maybe the stimulation of the brain enabled them to kind of access more information than what is commonly available to them. Sorry, I'm not a native speaker. But that is just my take on that. And there's been another statement by the IANDS, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies, and they have compared the reports of the Michael Persinger subjects of his experiments and near-death experiences, and they kind of compared them to each other, and they found that they were different from near-death experiences, though they certainly showed some of the features. And I'm not really sure what my take on that should be as for now, but I'm waiting for Michael Persinger's newest research, which is probably going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm certainly glad
I have a... so let's see if I can interject this here. You probably know about this, Paul. There's actually a study here. Let me put this in. People are collecting cases of NDEs. I think I saw one where there was someone collected, Dr. Kenneth Ring describes 21 cases of visual perception in the blind during their near-death experiences. Is there any way that would be explained with the brain? I mean, if someone's completely blind beforehand, and then during their NDE, suddenly they're able to see things.
Yeah.
What did they claim to see?
Not functioning.
I don't know. I haven't.
Well, what they claim to see would kind of be important.
Right. I've heard about this before. I haven't researched too much into it, but
I know one of them was supposedly aware that it was snowing outside, though it was not snowing when he was brought to the hospital.
Wait a minute. I hope you're not talking about referencing the guy that was the author of that Proof of Heaven thing, because that was a load of
not
BS.
that guy.
Okay, good, because he's a quack.
Nah, I'm not really getting into it, but I can send you an article on that later.
I'm not saying, hang on, I'm not necessarily saying that all of them are quacks. I'm saying that guy in particular is. There's a lot of evidence of him falsifying reports and a lot of massive embellishment, so he's not a good citation.
But there's been a rebuttal to that. I'm not sure that the last word on that is spoken. I'm still kind of agnostic about the whole topic. But another blind guy who was experiencing something else was able to describe, I think, facial features of the paramedic that resuscitated him.
What context? I would say, what context would he have to describe facial features?
Like
his vocabulary and his ability to describe it wouldn't have matched. It just seems completely impossible.
Blind people can feel someone's face, and that's actually how blind people recognize people's face.
But did he describe colors? Did he describe, like ethnicity, that kind of thing? Those kind of things would be without any prior knowledge or no accent.
He'd have no frame on that, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, through touching somebody's face, etc., a blind person in their mind's eye, so to speak, build a construct of what the person's face would look like.
But they would have been able to tell male or female. I'm pretty sure on that. And they
Well, that's a 50-50 guess.
Yeah, but they would have been able to tell something like beard, hair.
Well,
they touch a person's face, they'd know whether they had a beard or not. That's also from face shape and hair.
And you can tell
an indication
hold
of female as well as voice.
I was going to say, Heathen, you can tell by the voice.
What are we driving at here? When
basically, Paul's just trying to prove that near-death experiences are real.
No, I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I'm asking you to...
He's just pointing out flaws.
I think you know. That is a very big difference. And I would love you not putting any words in my mouth, okay?
Well, here's the thing. And like, okay, what are you a doctor, Paul?
I have a family with medical background, so that is sufficient
Right,
enough
okay.
to explain my case.
I
No.
don't want to do a call to authority on this one, if you don't mind, Nihilus.
I'm not. I'm asking him, and this is why I'm saying this. I think we're talking about a layman's assessment of everything. That's from everyone in this room, because I don't think anybody's a doctor, right? None of us are doctors. None of our are really psychologists, are we? None of us.
Yeah.
None of us really.
I would love to get Alex on here because his story would put to rest, would render moot a whole lot of the types of criticisms.
Well, the point of what I'm saying is, you're saying we should reevaluate our opinions on near-death experiences, and that's fine. But the only reason to reevaluate is to reevaluate the conclusion you come to. But it doesn't sound like to me like you're trying to falsify any naturalistic conclusion that anybody can come to. You're just saying, okay, it can't be this. But I think everyone here, besides the two theists, are naturalists, right?
I'm actually a naturalist. I'm just not. See,
Aren't you an idealist? Isn't that the exact opposite in this sense?
Yes and no. See, I think this is kind of the problem here. Let me just ask a question. Who here thinks that near-death experiences, if they were real, and out-of-body versus if they were real, these would be extraordinary claims? Who would think that would count as an extraordinary claim? Pretty much all the atheists, I'm guessing?
Yes.
No. Extraordinary? No.
Someone say no?
I'm sorry, could you repeat? I spaced out.
Would a real out-of-body experience, where someone actually went out of the body, would that qualify as an extraordinary claim?
Okay, the etymology of the word is combining extra and ordinary, so yeah.
Okay, I guess like something that seems like magical or impossible in some way. And see, here's the thing: is that
I don't know why.
For the longest time you have Descartes, which he has this substance
it should be on the table.
Substance says there's this naturalistic material world, and
It
there's
should
this
be right on the table with the
supernaturalistic
thing.
mental world where the soul is part of that, right? And of course, it makes no sense that the two can interact, and it makes no
Screw
sense
should
how
be on the table. That's the
this
last
extra
place it was.
supernatural thing could be there
Fine.
if we don't see it in day-to-day life, and so it's not something that just comes naturally to us, and we're like, well, of course, that's extraordinary because such a thing sounds completely crazy, right?
Well,
But
in
if
my
you look
view, they're
at
all psychological constructs, so there's nothing extraordinary about it because it's all just a psychological construct of one's own mind.
Right, but no,
But
if
anyway.
it was an actual claim of someone saying they saw something that would normally be considered supernatural or so on. Well, Paul and I are idealists, though, and so the thing is, when you think of it as idealism, there is no supernatural-natural dichotomy. It's all part of the same reality. It's just that it's natural. It's just that nature is implicitly mental. And so, and here's kind of a thought experiment, right? No one here can actually introspect on their own conscious perception, and own conscious experiences, and like from that deduce neurons, right? You can't be like, I'm going to close my eyes and like kind of meditate and like think for myself, and from that I'm going to figure out how my brain works and what's causing what my consciousness is derived from, right?
Okay.
And so the thing is if that's the case, you can't reduce consciousness to mental perceptions, right? I mean, to neurons, right?
But your mental
Well, technically
perception
you can.
could be wrong.
You can't from a first-person perspective, right?
But
No,
your
you need a
mental
third-person
perception could be
perspective of that,
wrong,
which
though.
is why
What
we
you
have
think your
equipment to
mind
hook up
is.
so that we
Right,
can
right.
analyze these things.
But a third-person perspective always requires a first-person perspective, right?
No.
Okay.
There is no such thing as a third-person perspective unless there's a first-person.
That's
a third
fucking
person.
get on with it, man.
Hang on,
Basically-
wait a minute. If somebody else is providing this perspective external of yourself,
External
that is not
myself, it's not external
first-person
himself.
perspective. That is not first person when somebody else is doing the analysis.
He's saying you don't have he's saying that you don't have the option of being the third person. Either you're analyzing someone else's brains in a first-person perspective, or someone else is analyzing your brains, and then you have to identify that from a first-person perspective. He's saying that you don't have an option to be in anything other than first-person perspective, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that much is accurate, but at the same
Okay.
point, you have the third-person confirmation.
Right, right.
But that's all I'm
Isn't that
specifying.
essentially matching correlates, though? I mean, you have like there. I
Okay,
mean,
on
some
with
people-
rats.
Okay, so basically what I'm getting at is it doesn't make any sense that the mind should reduce to the brain, even if we say that it does, or we say that we just kind of equate consciousness with correlates by, I mean, there's a whole philosophical issue as to why we should even equate that in the first place. But it doesn't. Even if we were to equate consciousness with its correlates, it doesn't make any sense why that should be true. And if that's the case, then it may be that our whole way of looking at the world, our whole ontology of how we link first person and third person together is wrong in some sense. We've made this assumption that third person has to be.
But here's the problem, Rats. Here's the problem: is that you have no way of demonstrating that. These are just.
No, I'm not suggesting to demonstrate this. I'm suggesting that if you think about the hard problem of consciousness for a bit, the claim of a out-of-body experience is not actually as extraordinary as it sounds on the face of it. It's extraordinary if you take it from a dualist perspective, but if you take it from a panpsychist or idealist perspective, it's not as extraordinary as it would be.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
That's all I'm saying. That's all.
So we're getting back to that whole consciousness is separate from the brain thing, aren't we?
No.
Yeah, but it's not inside. I mean, that's the intuition. I'm trying to find out that kind of concept.
So here's the thing:
is not,
you have a circumstance in which somebody suffers a form of brain damage and their personality changes completely. Does that mean their spirit has changed? Their consciousness has changed? Does that make them a new person?
That would, believe it or not, the fact that if you can damage the brain and if that can then affect the mind, that would actually be good evidence for idealism, if you think about it.
How?
What?
How?
What?
Yep, I'll explain why. Okay, so the reason why okay, guys, why let me ask you a question. Why was what?
Time for a new slide.
Okay, why was substance dualism largely rejected by people? What was the main there are a lot of problems with it, but what was the main problem why substance dualism was rejected?
I don't know.
Is interactionism, right? You can't make any sense of how a natural and supernatural thing can interact. Is the interaction natural or is it supernatural, right? And if it's one or the other, then...
Well, you have to show there's a supernatural thing first.
Right, but I'm saying this comes out. The reason that this conclusion is valid is relevant. It's not because there necessarily is a natural supernatural dichotomy, but it means something about the whole concept of two separate things interacting.
They cannot unless there's an order.
They can't interact. Natural and supernatural matter. If matter and mind are two fundamental types and types of substances, they can't logically interact with one another.
But you're stipulating something for which there is no
You're so
evidence.
long-winded. Get at it.
You're stipulating something for which there's no evidence.
It's relatively easy to prove that the mind is immaterial from just modal logic when you consider solipsism. That being the case,
you can prove anything from modal logic.
Would you please be so kind and let Johannan finish, because it's kind of annoying of you interrupting him all the time.
And there are numerous thought experiments in philosophy of mind that, like Mary the Color Scientists and P-Zombies and so forth, that make it pretty clear. It's pretty clear that materialism by itself is not going to properly account for all the problems raised in philosophy of mind. You can try and shoehorn it, but it's not going to really fit. So it's a relatively simple thing to do to demonstrate that the mind is immaterial. And if the mind is immaterial and two different types of substances cannot interact with one another, then that means that anything that an immaterial mind interacts with must itself also be immaterial. Therefore, the brain is immaterial as well. Therefore, the physical stuff that makes it the brain is immaterial. Therefore, idealism is true.
Or it's just all material.
Except the problem with that is you can't reduce the mind back to the brain. And by the mind, I mean the first-person experience.
Right. So you're the type of philosopher that goes around telling scientists what they can and can't do.
Well, that is...
Hello?
That's the whole point. Philosophy deals with first questions, and to reject that actually would go into positivism or scientism, which is kind of a fallacy.
That's what Aristotle did. And then science disproved his little idea.
I'm thinking at a much more fundamental level,
But you're suggesting it's an argument from ignorance. It really is an argument from ignorance.
No, it's not, because you need to have philosophy before you can know if the scientific method is valid at all.
Okay, yeah.
Why should brain damage have anything to do with the mind?
Right.
Because if the mind is immaterial and the brain can damage the mind, and
then what mechanism? What mechanism
is? You just said that the two cannot interact a moment ago.
No. That's assuming that the brain is material. If the brain is material, it cannot interact.
Wait. What mechanism is causing the interaction between the immaterial mind, which you say, and the brain?
Probably the Zeno effect, but I'm not certain.
What the fuck is a Zeno effect?
Quantum Zeno effect. Henry Sapp has some stuff on it where you can observe something repeatedly in it.
Xeno.
Hold on.
I mean, it's speculative. I don't know for certain. I'm
saying it's not the spelling because I heard Xenu.
No,
Xeno as an alien or strange.
Oh, not.
Okay, good.
It's
just making sure I heard that right. Okay,
no, I'm not
thank
giving
you.
you Scientology. Okay, so here's the thing, right? If the brain is material and it interacts with the mind, which is immaterial, you can prove is immaterial, that should not be possible. So if the mind is immaterial and the mind can interact with the brain, that proves by virtue of the fact that it can't interact with the brain at all, and vice versa, that whatever it's interacting with or being interacted upon by is itself immaterial.
Right, but as
The brain
hold on.
has to be immaterial as well.
Are you saying the brain's immaterial?
Yeah, I'm an idealist.
That's exactly what he's been saying. But hold on a minute. Because the thing that you say, oh yeah, I can prove all this stuff ontologically, blah 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 blah. I can prove the existence of mindless alien butt sex as long as I do it coherently with ontology.
You can't prove everything with modal
How
logic.
could you prove
Like-
that the
like, for
brain
example-
is the material and you
like,
can
for
have
example-
somebody touch it? And
Wait,
operate
one at a time. One at a time.
Sorry,
What?
sorry.
What modal logic does is it takes a given thing and then puts it into another context to see if it fits in that context. And then from that you can say it has the property that it can fit into this context. What you cannot
But
do with
modal logic cannot be used to actually see if something is true or not. You can only see if it's sound.
well, except for the things that you know automatically. Like, you know your first-person experience. And you can then stick your first-person experience in some hypothetical world.
Can your
and see if it
first-person
fits.
perspective be wrong?
What are you, Saiton Brutcake?
I mean, no, but your first-person
No, I mean,
perspective can
it's
be
almost
wrong, like
fundamental.
people seeing
It's-
delusions and stuff. So you need
It can be-
validation.
It can be delusion. It can have a delusion, see a delusion, but the one thing it can't have, in order for it to be to see a delusion, it can't itself be a delusion. Otherwise, there would be no one to delude in the first place.
I think that you can't say things like if like you were talking about the brain interacting with the mind and stuff like that. I think that's just like playing with words. I mean, like the mind is what the brain does. So what you're saying
That's
is
not coherent, though. That's like saying I'm a process and so can you.
well, it's just like saying if the legs can't interact with running, therefore you can run without using any energy, which makes no sense
but
because
the
the
mind
legs
isn't the mind.
is not the
running is a process.
My turn to talk. Running is what the legs do, and the mind is what the brain does. It's what it does.
Well,
So
I dispute that.
that means that you can't separate them. They're the same.
That's not a coherent sentence, though. Is what I'm saying. To say that, you remember what's his name? Stephen Colbert he had this comedy book called "I'm America and So Can You," right?
Why are we quoting books by him?
Okay, the point is that the title of his book makes no coherent sense, right? It's not really a sentence. It's I am America. What does that mean, right? And so can you.
He's making a metaphor, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so let's say that I say a car is the process of driving. That doesn't make any sense, right? When you say that the mind is what the brain drives.
A car can be driven, but there is a third party that's doing the driving.
Hold on.
Let me
put this into perspective. Because I have a way to phrase it. The mind working between electrons, the electrons firing in the mind, or in between synapses in neurons. That's what we call the mind. Driving would be the parts on the car spinning and moving.
Right. Okay, so realistic here has a better definition, because he actually says that the mind is a something. What I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to say that the mind is a process, because that's like saying I am a verb, right? I is the mind. And a process, though, is not a thing in itself. It's an action or something that is done. Or something else done.
Recall Paul.
Oh. Okay, I'm not certain how that happened.
Strife, recall him.
I'm trying.
Or have him join in or whatever. Okay, what's the point, though?
The point is that so if I say the mind is a process, okay, of the brain, well, for a mind to be the process of the brain, it has to be a process in the first place, but a process is not a thing, a process is an action. And so when you say, I am a process, that's just completely saying I am a verb. A verb is an action, not a...
Don't you mean the mechanism?
Well, either the mind is a... Okay, you know, whether or not you're a materialist or an idealist or a dualist or whatever, you know, the mind is either a thing or a process, right? But it doesn't make sense to call it a process because if you say, well, when you say a process, you're saying... When you prevent the mind, well, you are the mind. You are your I, right?
Right, hold on, Rats, but you are never not verbing. At least anything, you are always being. There is always a being. There's you can't ever not be verbing. So that's
well, you are doing something, yeah, but you are not the action of doing. You are a thing, not an action.
But the only way you can have consciousness is through things being done. Strife, call Paul. What are you doing, man?
Sorry.
I mean, that may be how the mind runs or something. But the point is that it's not coherent to say...
Well,
but as I said, it doesn't actually show the validity of something. It only shows if the statement's sound. It does not show, you know, maybe it just...
But here's the point.
I'm not at this point, I'm not asserting that the mind is necessarily an immaterial thing. I'm just asserting that it's a thing. You can equate it with the brain and say...
This is the problem with verbosity. What you're saying is that you're saying an action is not a noun, but an action is a noun. So we're having a linguistic barrier here.
Wait, isn't an action a verb?
That's my point. That's my point.
Oh my God, an action...
See, when you say I am a process, what you're essentially saying is verb, article, verb. And that's, I mean, to have a sentence, you need to have at least one noun.
Okay, wait. Okay. You're saying that the mind is not a thing because we have a name for it?
No, the mind
it's like saying that my bread is not alive because I can name him Paul.
But the mind is not just one thing. It's all the neurons in the brain combined.
No. He's already argued that the brain doesn't exist.
Hold on.
No, it exists. It exists, but it's material. See, you have a little catch there, okay? I'm not actually arguing it doesn't exist. I'm not saying... Go ahead.
Can you define immaterial for me then,
if
please?
I may
Let me address Rats here. I'm going to talk... We're going to go on this linguistic tangent here. So you're saying because an action is necessarily a verb. That's how a verb is defined. A verb is defined as an action. So let's put that into a context, which you say cannot be done. An action is enacted. That's a sentence. But you just said that can't be, even though an action is defined by a verb. It's also a noun.
You're describing a... So you're saying the mind is a gerund, basically?
This is what I'm not saying anything about the mind because I don't think I'm qualified to speak on that. But from my limited perspective, I've been more convinced recently of materialism because for a while, Atheist had me going on that thing where he was talking about dual aspect theory. And then someone else, I kept going on about materialism, and then the more they talked about it, the more it seemed viable to me. And they were explaining it in such a way that it seemed viable. But you're saying that driving is not a thing, but driving can be referred to as a noun. It can be referred to as a noun, and the same way you can refer to the mind, it's out of convenience, and doing anything more with that is saying is just playing a linguistic game and saying, oh well, you can't do it because the language doesn't permit it.
Yes.
You can't refer to it because the language doesn't permit it. It's just playing a linguistic game. But
what I'm saying is that language defines meaning. And
no.
Without, I mean, what I'm saying is, in order for something to be true, it has to be coherent.
No, let me tell you, like for example, in Japan.
Hold on a second, guys. Before we continue, there's something I want to read from the chat as soon as I can find it again. It keeps jumping around on me. Where'd it go? There's the tripping balls part. Where are you? Okay, guess 3... Fuck off. Quit posting, people. I'm trying to read shit. Of course, now they'll post it a million miles a minute.
So, I was going to say that in Japan,
right,
there's
here
no
we
difference
go.
between blue and green. Doesn't mean that blue and green don't exist. So, it's just a linguistic problem that they have. Now, for us, we have this problem where we have the word mind, which is a noun in our vocabulary, but it doesn't mean that the mind is automatically a thing.
Sorry, I found what I was going to read. If the brain was immaterial, Kurt Cobain would still be releasing albums. Then guest 3425504 wants to know, where do you get these nutters?
On the other hand, if Kurt
I can
Cobain
actually
maybe
cite
was
some.
being-
I can cite some physicists saying that the brain's immaterial. Not
I wanted
directly.
to make a
but-
joke about Kurt
If you'll
Cobain.
excuse me for a second, I want to answer that question. We get them from the internet.
Welcome to the internet.
I could troll you guys all and say that, the Zeilinger study, and this is, Wolf Prize recipient, guy who invented quantum teleportation, saying that particles don't exist before you look at them, that there is no reality outside of observation. He's actually, I give you quotes on him like in an article saying
Yeah,
this.
but that's
point is,
equivocation, Brad.
this has been,
That's
no, no, this is-
equivocation, and I'm not going to let you get away
This
with that.
has
It's just
been tested.
bullshit.
This has been tested, though.
No,
So
this
what I'm
is
saying
no,
is,
Brad.
No,
it's
no,
an
no, no.
application. It has nothing to do with the mind. It has to do with an observing instrument. And don't
Yes.
don't
No,
Correct.
I'm
tell
not
me
going to let
otherwise.
you get away with this. I'm not going to let you get away with this. And the
Oh.
reason I'm not going to let you get away with this is because, see, I had to correct someone else on this today, actually. They're assuming that, the measuring instrument is somehow just interacting with it, and then that little, perturbation or whatever is what's causing the collapse.
Yes.
Well, that's real fine if you want to argue for a local setting, but if you're dealing with, say, quantum entanglement, where, the other particle is 20 bazillion miles away, that's going to be an awfully long...
How are you observing the particle 20 million miles away then?
Well,
Good question.
your minds have interactions, don't they? Your
All
minds...
right,
your
I'd like
mind
to
does observe
interject
things.
here.
Now,
I'd
this does
interject.
not mean that...
Johan,
Go ahead.
may I just, that's why I asked if I can interject. Gibberish 001 asks, misrepresenting quantum physics, and then the little frowny face.
Very
No.
common.
all
Maybe
right.
gibberish,
Good point.
It's
whatever
not
his name
misrepresenting
is,
quantum physics.
might
You
join us.
look up, tell him to look up von Neumann chains, and you'll see the problem with... Okay, on the one side, it's wrong to
If
say...
you're familiar with quantum physics, you're welcome to call.
Yeah, sure. I would love that.
Send your DM to Stripe on Skype, and we'll get you in.
All right.
Yep.
So, on the one side, it's wrong to say that only minds can collapse wave functions, because obviously, with respect to the camera's collapsing the wave function, but the question is, who's collapsing the camera's wave function?
Why is there a who?
Or what? Right? So,
Right,
in order
but
to say that
just
the
say
mind
that everything-
can't collapse the
but
wave
hold on.
function.
Right, but the point is, right, okay, the only reason we know this is through mentality. No one's going to argue that. We only know this through subjective experience, right? But that is not to say that our subjective experience causes all of that. And that is also not to say that matter can't just collapse itself by virtue of third-party existence.
I'm not saying any of that at this point. What I'm just saying is that unless you want to put the mind, technically put the mind into some kind of supernatural realm like the substance dualist would, then the mind has to be able to collapse the wave function just like everything else in the world. That's actually treating the mind not as central or primary. That's actually the exact opposite of saying that the mind is ordinary and just like everything
Exactly
else
like
in
a
the world
camera.
that can
No.
collapse. Exactly like a camera or a photodetector or any other random,
So you
non-mystical,
say-
ordinary, non-supernatural thing in the world.
So
Right.
you're basically saying if the camera or the instrument can perceive something and therefore collapse it, and the mind can't perceive something, you must therefore collapse it too in order to be a
Right,
natural
but Brad,
thing.
you shoot yourself in the foot when you call the mind primary, because you say that the existence, all of everything in all of existence is just a mind. So you call the mind primary.
I get to that conclusion separately without...
Yep.
Right now we're just talking about the observer effect. The observer
So
effect...
you get to contradictory conclusions by using...
No. The conclusion everything is mind comes much farther down the line. All we're doing here is talking simple observer effect and the implications of that. Okay? So now, basically all I'm saying is that every interaction, whether it be mental or non-mental, if you can assume that the world is completely non-mental, fine by you. Okay, so now, if that's the case, there are non-mental things interacting, and if the mind is a natural thing, and part of, as natural material interactions, and all of those interactions are fundamentally collapse events, then logically any interaction that the mind does will have to be a collapse event. That would include observations. So it
Stipulation,
doesn't mean that
stipulation,
all
stipulation.
observations are collapse events, right? So that it doesn't mean that it's just observation that collapses the wave function. It means that observations are a subcategory of measurement. That's all. That's all the observer effect is saying there.
Some of you are saying stipulations there. Would you care to make like a whole point out of that instead of an assertion?
Here's what happens. You sit there and you take one little anecdotal thing, and you start stretching it and contorting it until it looks like fucking silly putty, until it fits exactly what you want your definition of the world to be. And I'm kind of tired of that because it's where most people go with quantum physics. You know,
Actually,
with
go
the
ahead.
whole thing with the two-slit experiment, we don't fully have an explanation of how that works. We just
We can
don't
rule
at this
parts
point.
of it out. We can rule parts of it out. We know that
So,
whatever is, it's not
Instead of
multiple.
sitting there and saying we don't know the difference, we're going to start asserting things as true to try and justify whatever our notions are.
We've
And I
had-
just get tired of listening to it.
I know, but the thing is that
Nobody
you're
forced
assuming
you
that
to.
we've just stopped. You know, no one's forced you to, but also you're assuming we've just stopped at the double slit experiment. They've done millions. Actually, just today I saw an article where they had closed up the last loophole on local realism, meaning that
What?
it's the thing entanglement. Basically, there are some loopholes where people were saying that entanglement wasn't a real thing and particles weren't affecting each other at instantaneously across vast distances. It was.
How have we shown that they're affecting each other across vast distances? That's what I'd like to know.
That's entanglement. That's violation of Bell's inequalities in 1982.
And how has this been shown to be true?
By an experiment. You can
Okay,
look it up
so-
in a physics book.
So
Right.
to examine a particle here, how do you even locate the other particle that you're claiming it's affecting?
Because
You are
they start
sending them-
out together.
Yeah, you're sending them. Basically, you are creating them together, and via a semi-permeable mirror, you're sending them down two different pathways, and one of them is going, and they're both going to be measured. And if one of them collapses in a certain way, the other has to collapse, always in a complementing certain way, and they always do that. But
So you're creating two. Hang on. So let me get this straight. So you're creating two particles, right?
Yeah.
And they collapse at about the same time after you've created them, right?
Yeah.
So this means they're entangled as opposed to they were created through the same process at the same time and collapse at the same time, correct?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I'm not a native speaker.
Okay, let me try this a little slower. I'm sorry. So you create two particles
Yes.
at the same time using the same method, correct?
Yes.
And then they collapse at the same time, right?
They have to collapse at the same time. That is the important difference.
They spin at the same time.
Okay. So
They
you
So
Change
they
spin.
serve the same
They change spin at the same time. Sorry.
they change spin at the same time?
The spin state. Well, if you're entangling their spins, that is. That's that
If-
commonly used.
okay, but here's what I'm saying. So you're creating two particles at the same time, and they dissipate at the same time, right? And that can't have anything to do with the way they were created?
No, they're not dissipating. They're just. See, in quantum mechanics, before you look at something, it's in superposition of, say, in this case, spin up and spin down at the same time. It's neither nor, but it's both and in a sense, right? And so if I'm in New York and I look at, someone sends one entangled electron my way or one entangled photon my way, another one, a different, to California and Los Angeles. Once the particle arrives at me, it's neither spin up nor spin down, okay? It's in superposition of both. When I look at it, suddenly it takes on, say, spin up, right? But at that exact moment, 3,000 miles away over in Los Angeles, the other electron has now flipped to spin down. And that's what we call entanglement. And they've actually used that recently not so recently, it was a couple of 10 years back but they've been using that to develop quantum teleportation and quantum cryptography and other.
And the interesting fact about why that is entanglement and not something else is that the information has traveled instantaneous, or at least almost instantaneous, which means faster than light, which should not be possible.
Well,
That's
it's not
very interesting, but we're very far from our topic, which was the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, also we gotta end the
You
show.
asked the question.
Okay,
Oh,
guys,
hang on.
strife.
Yeah, we gotta end the show. So we'll come back in 10 minutes for the after show, and we'll continue this discussion, which began about superstition. I mean, not superstitions. Began on.
Strange beliefs. I think we're still on it.
Strange beliefs. It's kind of,
I have no
when you get into
idea.
strange beliefs and you want to have a proper account for them, you have to get into strange topics. So.
All right,
Yeah,
and just before we
so-
close out, Collington Membranes wants to know, if we don't look at the universe, does it disappear?
Yeah, that's a good.
But we're
It's
always
a
in the universe,
program.
so how
It's
do
a
we
program in
not
God's
look at
mind. It's a program in God's mind before we look, and then it renders into an empirical state.
Yeah, no wonder you're not making any sense.
No, it's quite.
All
No,
right.
I can cite a whole crap load of physicists on this one. Not God, not except for the God's mind part, but
Well, I can quote a lot of people also saying that
The
when,
God's mind part is the part I was joking about.
yeah. I
when
know.
it when a tree falls and there's nobody to listen to it, what sound does it make?
That
None,
doesn't
because
make
none of the
I found an
particles.
even
It doesn't make
more
any sound, right?
interesting
I
question.
can appeal to authority harder than you can.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah.
If a tree falls in a forest and a cat's there, does the tree make a sound?
Yeah, hello?
No, it does.
Sorry.
The cat doesn't give a fuck. It goes and lays in the sunny spot
the
that
qu-
opened
the-
up.
Yeah, so
I've
tune
got
in next
another
week
question.
for another wacky episode of the Lion Go Show, Season 4.
And
and
hopefully we'll
tune
have
in
one of our
in-
guests respond.
Yeah, if our guests respond. So tune in next week and tune in 10 minutes for the after show. Thank you for watching. And...
And if a ninja falls down in the forest, does it